Hello and welcome to the Catholic Mama podcast. I'm your host, Christine Flynn. Thanks for joining me on this episode that's come after a long, unexpected hiatus. I had mentioned in a previous episode how our September was going to be very, very busy. We drove 2,400 miles, more than 2,400 miles as a family, to two out-of-state weddings. We had my parents here for about a week and a half. And then right before all of this, we had another friend staying at the house for a week. So it was 6 weeks of travel and house guests and trying to get in our school routine as best as possible. So it was a very, very long, good. I mean, it was all good things, but still good things can feel long. And then at the end of it, something quite unexpected and unwelcome. To be honest, if you've been following me on Instagram, you would have seen these posts, but I was very excited to get to share that we were expecting our fifth child with you. I was just waiting until that first trimester ending mark. I don't know why. Part of me thought that I told close friends and family, because I thought if anything happens with this pregnancy, I want their support. But otherwise, I was just going to wait until the first trimester ended, which I usually do anyway, to make a more public announcement of these sorts of things. And then tragically and sadly, I miscarried for the first time in my life at the end of September. So that was just a couple of weeks ago, actually, at the time now I'm recording this. And it was the first time that I've ever experienced a miscarriage, and I really would love to not have to experience that again. That was quite traumatic in a lot of ways. I was about 11 weeks along, so close to being able to, I would have been probably using this podcasting time to share with you that I was pregnant. But the Lord called our little one to heaven to pray for us there. So baby Flynn is in heaven now, our first saint. And one of the things that there's a lot of thoughts. I'm going to talk about suffering and loss and consolation a bit in this episode. And if you're watching me on YouTube, my husband took our kids out for coffee, which means it's early. And so the production value, at least as far as hair and makeup go, are a bit lacking. So thanks for bearing with me. It's been interesting over the past year and a half. I mean, we've all suffered, right? I did a great podcast episode with Jeannie Ewing, who is a grief writer, and started on this path as writing about grief and suffering and relying on the Lord in the aftermath of her own first child, her own daughter, being diagnosed right after birth with a very rare genetic disorder. And then going through the process of grieving life as she had thought it was going to be, grieving the life that it now was. And so she's been on the show a couple of times. And if you ever have a chance to look at or listen to those episodes, if you haven't already, they're wonderful. Jeannie is a speaker by profession and an author, and she has this wonderful way of conveying thoughts and emotions and experiences that really cut to the heart of anybody who's listening or reading her work. So I highly recommend that you just go to thecatholicmama.com, search for Jeannie Ewing. She's been on the show, I think, 3 times now. And the last one, actually, the last 2 are applicable to what we're talking about here. One was during the height of the pandemic, when we were initially trying to figure out what was going on and how bad things actually were going to be, and dealing with the restrictions and all that. So we did, grieving life as it was the last episode that we did together last year. And then previously to that, we did an episode on approaching motherhood with authenticity, on top of having, her going through the grief process with her daughter. She's also suffered from infertility and then hyperfertility, and then finally having to make a choice for hysterectomy, a medical choice, not just an elective, but it was truly a medical issue, and having to grieve the end of her fertility. So it's and all in the span of like 10 years. So she's gone through a lot, and hearing her discuss the burdens of both infertility and hyperfertility and just fertility in general as a woman, she does a great job. So listen to those. go do yourself a favor, go back and listen to those. Jeannie's wonderful. But I had read a book a while back. I think it was Kathleen Beckman. I think it was her book about spiritual warfare in the family. And she had, I believe it was her. In that book, she had mentioned a friend of hers who had lost their only child, an adult child, and immediately the first and Kathleen happened to be there when she got the news that her son had died. Immediately she had recited Job 121, which I will read to you now if you're unfamiliar with this phrase, with this passage in scripture. He said, Job said, naked I came forth from my mother's womb, and naked shall I go back there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. You always hear, kind of in jest, the Lord gives, the Lord takes away, but you never hear the rest of that, I don't think. That blessed be the name of the Lord. Now, over the past year and a half, it's been hard for everybody, almost 2 years now. And then on top of, and we all have, and not only because of the changing ways of life as we know it, and the flux that we're in, and just the real Sodom and Gomorrah type stuff that we're witnessing. It's a really challenging time to be alive, and not one that I think anybody really looked at and anticipated. At least the ones that are listening to this podcast, maybe some preppers or doomsdayers may have thought this ahead of time, but for the average person, we probably didn't see this escalating as badly as it did. And on top of that, we have our own regular lives happening. So for me, I spent about 7 months without sleep, or at least good sleep, because of a baby that is very high needs. And our first child was also high needs, but it was more doable because he was the first and the only one. And then to have number 4 also be high needs has been incredibly challenging. I mean, she's beautiful and wonderful and smart and funny, but man, she just sucks the life out of you day to day. So at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. And then for a good stretch of time through teething and everything, very sensitive to it. She didn't sleep. And in the middle of that, I was just struggling with, the fatigue. I can see after spending all that time with that poor sleep, I can see why sleep deprivation is a torture tactic, because it really feels tortuous. Everything declined. My patience, I gotta tell you, I was just dragging myself in the same sins of impatience and anger to confession every single time during those months, and it was very challenging. And then other just personal things. And in the midst of all this, I love being a mother. I love pregnancy. I know not everybody does have a good experience, but I really do. I mean, I'm sick and I have really bad nausea and all that stuff in the beginning. But I even before I was Catholic, I love pregnancy and I love motherhood. I just didn't have the total good foundations in which to enjoy all those things before, but it's always been the case. And so even in the midst of me suffering horribly with the lack of sleep and just life in general, I yearned for another child, and but it wasn't coming. And I'm sure the lack of sleep and the stress from all of that, and I to be honest, to get through, I was using the pleasure centers of food to get myself through the last that time period. So I wasn't eating well. I just wasn't taking care of myself. I was working out here sporadically. I was treating myself more than anything, because I couldn't imagine disciplining myself anymore when every day and every night felt like I was using up all my discipline that I could possibly have in the stores. So I was also struggling deeply with the fact that I felt very barren and unfruitful. I had stopped breastfeeding after in the spring of this year. Everything, fertility wise seemed to come back, but then there was no baby. And this is the longest that we've ever gone without one. And so I started to worry, what if we don't get pregnant? What if I'm done? I'm only 30, I'm 36. That's really early to be done having babies. As far as, biologically, women go for 6 to 10 more years of being able to have babies. And I was wondering, is there something wrong with me? I got blood work done. Everything came back normal. I'm kind of low on zinc, so I'm working on increasing those levels. But everything was fine. And I was just so frustrated. I was unable to lose any weight. So it felt like there was something off. Now, I think it was still residually stress and the way I was eating, because it's over the past few months, that's changed. but still I was getting very frantic feeling, you know, I know the Lord has given me a lot. Children are a gift. I'm not owed them. But to actually realize that that may be true in my own life, that I'm not just going to be fertile forever, or at least, maximize my fertility, became a very scary thought to me. And then I got pregnant, and I was floored. I couldn't believe that I had gotten pregnant. I had expected a pregnancy months earlier, and nothing had ever happened. So when I finally got pregnant, I thought, wow, this is great. I'm not barren. And the pregnancy started out, I immediately cut out sugar and all this stuff that I had been eating too much of, and drinking, all that stuff was gone. And I've been really healthy. I was really, really healthy as soon as I could take a pregnancy test, or even before that, before I even thought that I was pregnant. And but the pregnancy, I usually have pretty debilitating morning sickness for the first trimester, and I felt nauseated, but not the worst I've ever felt. And I was really excited. We told the kids right away, we told my family and friends, but for whatever reason, um, that that scripture verse of Job kept coming to mind. And I kept thinking, I'm just going to tell close, like I said, close family and friends in case something's wrong. And I've seen so many friends in the Catholic world having to deal with um, uh, with miscarriages and stillbirths and undiagnosed medical issues after birth, that I was like, maybe that's why. Maybe I'm seeing so many issues and instances in my own life. Maybe that's why I keep thinking that there might be something wrong. Well, that's not the case. I don't have answers as to why I miscarried. I've never miscarried in my life, so it was quite a shock. Um, but then, but I'll tell you what. 2 days before I miscarried, Job, that verse from Job came to mind again. And every time that I've opened the Bible for the past year and a half and asked God, why am I suffering? It's gotten to the book of Job somewhere. And it's not like I'm just like meditating on the book of Job and my Bible's creased, at Job. It's just random opening. And so this idea of suffering, of righteous suffering, and bringing me more to holiness has been kind of ingrained in me so much over the past year and a half. Job constantly in my mind. I just kind of got used to this. It was a mantra. The Lord has given, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Over and over again, my mind has been playing for the last year and a half. And it certainly helped me get through a lot of stuff. And it really helped in the days that I began to miscarry and went through that process. The Lord has given me a lot of graces over the past, those 6 weeks of house guests and travel and other just regular stresses. We own our own family business, and that can be stressful, more stressful at times than others. And last month was one of those times. But the Lord gave me a gift in that miscarriage, in that I was going to miscarry, and I had a feeling that something was wrong for the whole 7 weeks that I knew I was pregnant. But he gave me a gift. I began to spot early one morning, and that whole day, I was talking to my midwife, and she was explaining what could be, and possibly getting an ultrasound, but everybody's booked up because there's not very many workers and they're backed up, so I wouldn't be able to get it for a week. I was able to reach out to friends, both in person and through the Catholic Corner of Instagram, and ask for prayers. I was able to pray quietly a rosary to the Blessed Mother. I was able to go to adoration. I was able to call my mom and have her support and love, and hear from my dad. And so there was a day there of this grief that was able to start the process of grieving. Like, well, this could be a reality that I'm going to lose this baby, and I did the next day. But God, that first day, that one day, was such a gift that it called to mind another scripture verse, which I've been holding on to for the past year. And this is from chapter 55 of Isaiah, verses 8 to 10, or 8 and 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, oracle of the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, my thoughts higher than your thoughts. So I was able to spend a day grieving and starting to process what was actually happening. And I went to adoration and that evening, and I said, Lord, I'm here to ask for a miracle. But most importantly, I'm asking for strength, because I can't do this on my own. I can't do anything. I spent years as an atheist and years as a new ager narcissist. I don't have it by myself. I've tried and I failed time and time again. I said, I need strength. I want a miracle, but I need strength. And the Lord provided, that ask and ye shall receive. You ask for the things that the Lord will give you for your benefit. And he gave it to me. The strength that I was able to have, and the trust. It's not the strength that I didn't cry, because I certainly did. And I didn't grieve, because I did, and I still am. But the strength to accept his will. And if anything, I was angry. It was anger at sin, because sin is brought death into the world. The wages of sin are death. And that is why my baby didn't survive. And that's why I suffer, is because of sin in general. And so having that perspective, God gave me this perspective during those moments that I were a bigger gift than anything I've ever received. And it's the only thing, because I've suffered so much through, I mean, we all have, right? I'm not saying that I'm trying to say my suffering's worse than anybody else's, but my cousin committed suicide about 18 years ago today. And it was my aunt and uncle's only child. And I suffered tremendously through that, and not well. It was not good, holy suffering, right? It pushed me, drove me one step closer to despair, which is what killed my cousin. My brother's best friend died on his own wedding day, and my brother saw it happen. He was in the car with him when this accident happened. That destroyed me. And I had no way of suffering properly, because I didn't know God and I didn't know the Catholic faith. One step closer to despair. And it all started like 9/11, that horrible tsunami back in 2005 that killed hundreds of thousands of people. Remember that? All those things. My abortion that I had back in 2002. Depression, anxiety. I eloped when I was 20, and that clearly did not work out. All these things just led one to another towards despair. And so this is the first time, really the first time that death has touched me so intimately that I didn't despair. And in fact, it was the opposite. And that gift was immense, and I'll never forget it, because I don't think that it's so different than how I would have normally responded to an event like this, that it can't be forgotten. So I guess I'm doing okay. I've made my peace with what God has decided to do. I think my grief and my anger and sadness are placed well enough. I went to confession the 2 days after I had miscarried, or a day after I had miscarried, and cried to the priest, and he gave me such good penance. It was to rest, and which is a very hard thing for me to do. I'm a go-getter, but he said to rest and to give myself permission to rest. And that's what I did. And I felt great. And I feel much better. I'm also coming to terms with the fact that the reason I've had so much strife interiorly with my fertility over the past year and a half is that I haven't given it back to God. I've been holding on to it so tightly, because this, fertility for women, this is who we're made to be. We have a special house in our body to be fertile and to grow life. And if it doesn't work the way we'd like it to, or the timeline that we like it to, it feels as if it's an attack on our own person. And I realized that I was making it more about me and my timeline and my desires more than what God wills for me. And so it took until this miscarriage, and it took until, years of worry that my children would be too far spaced apart, because my brother and I are spaced kind of far apart, and it's just the two of us, and we're not close now as adults. We're not really friendly. And it horrifies me that my children might wind up like that. And um, but I've been holding on to this panic since my son was born. And I felt a little bit better when the second one came along, and a little bit better when the third one came along, and pretty good when the fourth one came along, and we were Catholic, really Catholic then. So I thought, oh, this is great. We're just going to have a big family. We go every other year like we have been. I'll have 8 kids by the time I'm 42. That's a great family size. It's a wholesome family size. Like I wanted a big family. And for the first time this past year and a half, through not being able to conceive when I thought I would, and losing a baby when I wanted that baby so badly, has made me realize that I can't force anything, and it's all God's will. And to finally give my fertility, the one thing that I've been really holding on to, I'm not holding on to my house, I'm not holding on to my car, I'm not holding on to money, but I'm holding on to my fertility. And that's just the same. It's a possession that I think I own, that I'm holding on to and have been refusing to let God have back. And how many times I say, God, you have it all. You have everything of me. But did he? No, he didn't, because he didn't have my children that I was willing to give, and he didn't have my fertility or future children. And so this whole experience has made me to offer my fertility back to God. And surprisingly, I felt very good about that. Right. I'm a type A person. I like to be in control, and to give something like that I hold so dear to me willingly back to God has offered a lot of peace over the past few weeks that I did not anticipate, because usually letting go of control is a very scary thing for a person such as myself, but it's worked out. It's worked out better than I could have imagined. So, look, life can be very tragic and traumatic and dramatic and all sorts of things. It's a broken world, but we are going to suffer. But it's better to suffer with Christ than without him. And it is better to give everything back to God truly, because we don't own it anyway. We just think we do. And the less that or the more that we realize that we don't actually own these things, even parts of our own body, I think the more peace we'll find. And there's a great consolation and graces there. Like I said, I offer this back to God, and God has given me the grace of interior peace when I've been feeling very frantic. So maybe not right away. And oftentimes when we say we're going to do something for God, something virtuous, it's a good thing. We say we're going to do it, but we still have to go through it. Like saying, yes, I'm going to go take that trip. I'm going to drive cross country, but you still got to drive cross country. And it's very difficult and burdensome at times and exhausting. But by the grace of God, we get there, and he gives us the graces along the way to do so. So if you are struggling personally with anything like fertility, I give it to see if you can give it to God. See if you can let go with that. I'm still working on it, because I have to remind myself every couple weeks at least that my fertility is not mine. I thought it was, but it's not. And if you wouldn't mind saying a prayer for me as I continue to heal, and our family as we get used to this idea of having a baby in heaven, praying for us, that would be very helpful. It's still a process to work through all of this, as I'm sure many listeners would know for themselves, because this is quite common. It's just funny that I didn't think it would happen to me. All right, everyone, I'm gonna I was hoping to record a Catechism Friday right after this, but my computer is right out of batteries and I don't have the power cord with me. So I will be back soon with regular episodes. I'm excited to get back into it. I have some episodes in the bank from authors that I was and writers that I was looking forward to sharing a couple months ago, but wasn't able to. So I'll be sharing those. We'll get back, if you're on YouTube, we'll get back to recording our Catechism Fridays and Hearth and Home Homeschool Mondays as well, which I put up there on Fridays and Mondays when I am not living in a wildly unscheduled schedule or unroutine routine. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. I've missed you. I've missed podcasting, and I'm excited to get back to it. I know I've said that a couple times over the past month and a half, but there's been extenuating circumstances. So hopefully we won't deal with any of those and again anytime soon. So until next time, my friends, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss these episodes when they do come out. Take care. God bless.